All right, peace, fam. It's Moreno Bey. I want to discuss various topics today. It's a very broad topic in regards to are Moors indigenous to the Americas? If so, where's the proof? And where's the evidence or where's the documentation? First off, who are the Moors? The Moors are the people that are branded as Negroes, blacks, African Americans, Puerto Ricans, West Indians, Indians. I can name it all day. Okay? Those are the Moors. Being Moorish or the suffix ish, it actually means of or pertaining to. So it's not sort of like a Moor or anything of that nature. It means of or pertaining to the Moors. Okay. In one of my videos, you want to tell me something about 10,000 years ago, I would suggest you check that video out because I break down how the word America was transliterated out of the word Morocco. So I'm going to start with a book by Ivan Sertima. It's a very good book. I would suggest people to look into this. The book is called They Came Before Columbus. And again, it's by Ivan van Sertima. It's a very good book. And it actually deals with compelling and very dramatic, detailed documentation of the presence and legacy of Africans in ancient America. Again, Ivan van Sertima. It's a very good book, people, so check it out. There are many other books that speaks about the presence of African culture in the ancient Americas, but this one right here is what I'll be speaking about today. This book has so many different pictures and artifacts in regards to our culture and writings, paintings, maps, all sorts of things that were here, of course, before Columbus. So I just want to show you guys a few pictures before I actually start off with everything, just to give you an idea that your ancestors were here in the Americas way before this guy, Cristobal Colon. Okay? Show you a few more pictures. Olmecas, Mexico, Mexum, all of these words correlate with each other. Okay? It's very interesting. It's very interesting that all of this information is out here, but we just don't know or we just don't read. Just giving you guys a few images of what's been out here, what's still out here, and we refuse to honor our ancestors here in the Americas. We refuse. Okay? You see that, people? Very good book. He speaks on Upper and Lower Egypt. As a matter of fact, let me read this real quick. It says, it was at this point that the battles which were led to the total conquest of Egypt by the blacks began. Naval engagements were fought on the Nile, sieges were laid to Egyptian cities. Tafnak was pushed back and back, his vassals submitting one by one until Pinkadly, like the great pharaohs before him, donned the double serpent crown of Upper and Lower Egypt. Now, when you're dealing with Upper and Lower Egypt, you're pretty much dealing with my territory. That's like the Kentucky territory, Tennessee territory, which I'm near the corporate city of Memphis territory. You're dealing with those areas, Lower Illinois territory. That would be dealing with Upper and Lower Egypt. Even Abraham Lincoln spoke on this. Okay. In the last great battle of the campaign at the siege of Memphis, the Black King marshaled every kind of watercraft, barges, passenger ships, cargo vessels, using the yardarms as bridges and ladders to scale the walls. Tafnak was forced to retreat to an island within the northernmost reaches of the Nile. Now, when you look into the Nile and you look into the Mississippi, our ancestors always formed sister cities of what was on the other side of Africa, because this is Africa also. You have the Mississippi, you have the Nile, you have Memphis, Tennessee, you have Memphis, Egypt, you have Cairo, Egypt, you have Cairo, Illinois, etc. So it's all intertwined with one another. People, we got to read and we got to understand that what's above is below. Look into your 7 Hermetic principles and do your scientific studies on that and understand the land mass, how it corresponds with one side corresponds to another. And again, how the ancestors always had sister cities scientifically lined with the heavens of the zodiac, mathematically lined with cities on the other side of the world. Okay? This is how our ancestors did things. Okay? They were mathematicians, they were scientists. Again, great book. Check into it. All right. Did the transatlantic slave trade exist like the Europeans say it exists? Now, before you answer this, think about it. Just really think about it. I know the images that we see our brothers and sisters hanging from trees, slaughtered. We see whiplash marks across the backs of our ancestors, the faces, the chest, the legs, our ancestors being mutilated, genitals cut off. We can talk about it all day. That part, of course, yes, it exists. It exists. But let's ask ourselves this. Serious, logical questions as to how the Europeans say the transatlantic slave trade exists. Now, in order to counter this, we got to ask questions. So now I'm going to go and refer to one of the good brothers, Abdullah Bey, his book in regards to this subject. And this book right here is very good. He sent me this book a few years ago. Very, very good book. It's called Breaking the Chains of Slavery. Very good book. And this brother got some compelling questions that everyone that actually believes that the Atlantic slave trade exists, how the Europeans say it exists, these are some of the questions that should be asked. Okay? We never said that slavery didn't exist. But we're about to question, did it exist the way they say it exists? Okay? Now check this out. It's chapter 13, page 54, and it's entitled The Reconstruction of History in the Americas. Some Myths of the Middle Passage by Brother Abdullah L. Talib Mosey Bey. Now check this out. Before you criticize, listen, observe, research, because that's what true scholars do. Let us use math to examine the myth that the indigenous people, the Moors of North, Central, and South America, now branded black, Negro, colored, Afro, etc., were shipped from what the masses know as Africa to what they know as the Americas. In questioning their own writings, how could the European colonists, reconstructors of history who shipped over 125 million of Moors, now labeled as black, Negro, colored, Afro, etc., from what the masses know as Africa to what the masses know as North America, Northwest Africa, Amexem, when they didn't not even know how to grow their own crops. They would have starved to death if the Moors had not fed them, subsequently taught them how to grow crops. Now think about that paragraph I just read, people. Think about it. Before you answer anything, think about it. Now, next, did the European colonists, reconstructors of history, and Asiatic historians, anthropologists, and sociologists who followed their teachings, writings that the Peregrinus, or what people call pilgrims, were so skilled in navigation to the point that they were able to sail over 125 million Moors from East Amexem, which is East Africa, to North America, which is Northwest Africa, or Amexem. Keep in mind that these same Peregrinus did not know how to grow their own crops. Think, people. Before you answer, before you criticize, think and research. That's what true scholars do. Next, if so, what were the names of the schools where the English learned navigations during the 1600s and 1700s? The knowledge of astrology is needed to successfully navigate ships, for the stars and the moons are used as guides. Think, people. What were the name of the schools? Now remember, Europeans are masters of record keeping. And since most of our people are under the Willie Lynch psychological syndrome of 1712, we're stuck to that paradigm of what they say. Remember, they are the masters of keeping records. So where are the records? Where are the records for this? Next, what were the names of the professors and artisans who taught geometry, cartography, biology, chemistry, physics, shipbuilding, sailing, carpentry, smelting at the schools in England during the 1600s and 1700s? And who taught them? Think about it, people. What were the names of the schools in England during the 1600s and 1700s that taught shipbuilding, carpentry, water purification, forestry, and smelting? Now remember, a lot of people say that the European were crawling on all fours, hiding in caves, living in caves, and using homosexuality as a daily preference for them, for the males. How is it that a guy that's crawling on all fours, that's a homosexual, living in a cave, that does not know how to grow his own food, end up coming up and enslaving you? How is that possible? Check this out. What were the names of the multiple highly sophisticated lumber mills, iron mills, forestries in England during the 1600s and 1700s? They got to have a record. Anyone got the records? Remember, they're master record keepers. What were the names of the companies that made the sails in England during the 1600s and 1700s? What were the names of the cloth mills that supplied the cloth to the companies that made the sails in England during the 1600s and 1700s? What were the names of the supporting industries in England during the 1600s and 1700s? Remember, this is a business, so they had to have other businesses to help them transport this many humans, okay? Remember, many unrelated industries and technologies need to come together in order to accomplish the task of sailing over 125 million Moors on ships. Now, the reason I'm asking this and reading this from the brother's book is because, have anyone ever thought that maybe we were already here and what they were doing is transferring us back and forth and from the east to the west on our own land? Okay, because later I'll be going into how this is the Americas and what is the Americas. Okay, what were the names of the food growth and preservation industries in England? Food is needed to maintain the health and strength of the crew and the slaves. What were the names of the food storage industries in England? What were the names of the industries that built water purification systems to supply fresh water for the ships? The crew and the slaves would have dehydrated rapidly if they drank salt water. How many ships did the European colonists, reconstructors of history, use during the Middle Passage? All of these questions have to be answered, people. Remember, these people are master record keepers. So if these records does not exist, where are they? Or did it happen the way that they say? Let's use logic. What were the name of the ships? How many slave ships did each ship hold? Where did the slave urinate and defecate? How many months did it take the European colonists, reconstructors of history, to complete a voyage? What was the distance the European colonists, reconstructors of history, traveled? Where did the European colonists, reconstructors of history, store the Moors labeled black, Negro, colored, Afro once they set ashore the Americas? Why were a secret society set up? Eastern Star, Prince Hall, Knights of Templar, Rosicrucian Order, Odd Fellows. Why do they exist? What secrets are preserved and taught in these secret societies? Could the secrets be the true history of the Moors, now branded black, Negro, colored, Afro-Indian, West Indian, Hispanic, Latino, etc.? Because we all share the same blood. Now, I remember growing up, a lot of people would look at me and say, hey, you mix. Are you mixed? Are you mixed black and white? Are you Puerto Rican? Yeah, you Puerto Rican, huh? Oh, you West Indian. I would always get this. Now, what they were doing is they were looking at my physical features and associating me with something that was a brand, okay? When I'm a Moor. They said, they asked me everything, but they didn't ask, was I a Moor? Okay? Now check this out. Why keep secrets? What evidence, one, proof, do the European colonists, reconstructors of history, and the Asiatic scholars who follow their teachings have to support the myth that the Moors, now branded black, Negro, colored, Afro, were brought in hulls of ships from what the masses know as Africa to what the masses know as the Americas? Have you ever thought about these compelling questions? Remember, let us use math, logic to examine these compelling questions. Last thing, let's remember this, people. Major older documentations and artifacts, letters, treaties, maps, calendars, pictures, sculptures, paintings, encyclopedias, dictionaries, almanacs have not been exposed to the masses. Have you ever wondered why they have not been exposed to the general public? Have you ever wondered what information has been kept from the general public? Have you ever wondered who possesses the older documentations and artifacts? Now, that very last sentence, have you ever wondered who possessed the older documentations and artifacts? That kind of remind me of a talk I had with Brother Amazon Bey and Cujo L the other night on the Amazon Bey show. I believe it was entitled Ask a Real Grand Sheik. And I pretty much knew the answer anyway, but I asked the question so the Grand Sheik Cujo could answer it for the public. And my question was, are there any audio recordings of Noble Drew Ali? If so, where are they? Because at that time, you had Brother Marcus Garvey. He was doing this thing, and he has plenty audio. I mean, it's other brothers at that time that was within the movement for our people that had audio recordings of themselves. And immediately, Grand Sheik Cujo said, 0. He said, none. Unless it's in someone's vault that's hiding it or keeping it, whatever. Because Noble Drew Ali did a lot of things. So now we got to ask, now we got to ask ourselves this question. Where are the audio recordings for Noble Drew Ali? You can't tell me that this brother wasn't recorded one time throughout his enlightenment period of his being on this physical plane. All right, we're going to go to this next subject. Are we Americans? Are we indigenous? All right, now we're going to go to this book right here. Very good book, very detailed. I suggest anyone with sense, common sense, to get this book. Actually, it's the King Alfred Plan. It's an executive order, 11490. It was implemented October 19, 1969. And this executive order was authorized to counteract the minorities, the people with minor-like minds, which are blacks, Indians, Latinos, Puerto Ricans, and poor whites, and their rise from up under the depressions and powers that be, which is the quote-unquote government. All right, what I'll do in this book is basically I'm going to go straight to it because I have so much to talk about. I'm going to go to page 374 when it speaks about the infiltrated organizations. And I'll start and I'll read quickly, but I also want you guys to listen quickly. The infiltrated organizations under surveillance. Number 1, the Black Muslims. Number 2, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Number 3, Congress of Racial Equality. Number 4, Uhuru Movement. Number 5, Group on Advanced Leadership. Number 6, Freedom Now Party. Number 7, United Black Nationalists of America. Number 8, the New Pan-African Movement. Number 10, the National Urban League. Number 11, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Number 12, Committee on Racial and Religious Progress. All right, now check this out. This is coming from the Attorney General at that time. Note, at the appropriate time to be designated by the President, the leaders of some of these organizations are to be detained only when it is clear that they cannot prevent the emergency, working with local public officials during the first critical hours. Now, this is why we always say we don't get out and protest, and because we understand the King Alfred Plan and what they have implemented to do to the people once it gets out of control. Okay? All other leaders are to be detained at once. Compiled list of minority leaders have been readied at the National Data Computer Center. Black leaders. It is necessary to use the minority leaders designated by the President in much the same manner in which we use minority members who are agents with central and federal. Okay? And we cannot, until there is no alternative, reveal King Alfred in all its aspects. Minority members of Congress will be unseated at once. This move is not without precedent in American history. Now, I'm about to read the preliminary memo from the Department of Defense. Even they know you are indigenous. But since our people don't read and are so afraid of enforcing law, we're at the bottom. This memo is being submitted in lieu of a full report from the Joint Chiefs of Staff. That report is now in preparation. There will be many cities where the minority will be able to put into the street a superior number of people with a desperate and dangerous will. Think about it. New York City, 10 million people. Chicago, maybe 5 or 6 million people. Memphis, you got maybe like 1.5 million. Atlanta, 2 or 3 million. You know, these are just estimates. I'm going to read it one more time. There will be many cities where the minority will be able to put into the street a superior number of people with a desperate and dangerous will. He will be a formidable enemy, for he is bound to the continent by heritage and knows that political asylum will not be available to him in other countries. That's why they can't deport us, baby. That's why they build more jails, baby. Y'all don't read. Y'all got to read. This was in 1969 when they put this out. Check it out. The greatest concentration of the minority is in the Deep South, the Eastern Seaboard, the Great Lakes region, and the West Coast. All right? I just went into this, letting you know that they know that you are bound to the continent by heritage, by your mother and her mother and her mother, her mother, her mother, her mother, and 20,000 more mothers. Okay? All right, now, I'm going to show you something else since everybody love authoritarians. They love authority figures. This right here is the city of Memphis Moorish American Week proclamation that was signed by the city mayor at that time, A.C. Wharton. Okay. Now, again, this is coming from an authoritarian, since most people believe everything people that's in authority. Well, I'll read something from someone that's in an authoritarian position. It says the city of Memphis proclamation. Whereas the Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites, Hamathites, and Canaanites who were permitted by the old pharaohs of Kemet to traverse from East Africa and later form themselves kingdoms extending from the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa, the Atlantic islands, unto the present-day continental Americas, with an S, Americas, North America, South America, Central America, and the adjoining islands. Whereas the indigenous Moorish-ish, meaning of or pertaining to Moors, let me read that again. Whereas the indigenous Moorish people of the Americas are now united in order to again link themselves with the family of nations. Now, they say nationality is not important, but this mayor, a corporate mayor, is publicizing this. Whereas the Moorish Americans being aboriginal, abu meaning from, whereas the Moorish Americans being aboriginal, from original, to the territories of North, Central, and South Americas have formed a sovereign theocratic government guided by the command principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Okay? Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, baby. See that? We don't play with it. Okay? Through the virtue of the universal right to self-determination, as well as with the Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People guaranteed in the Charter. Remember, Obama signed on to the rights of indigenous people. Whereas on January 8, 1886, Noble Drew Ali was born in the state of North Carolina, destined to become the first patriot of his mentally, remember, the Willie Lynch syndrome, 1712. On January 8, 1886, Noble Drew Ali was born in the state of North Carolina, destined to become the first patriot of his mentally enslaved Moorish American people. In 1912, he was later anointed as El Hajj Sharif Abdul Ali by the heads of Egypt and holy city of Mecca to return to the United States as the last prophet and founding father of the newly risen nation of Moorish Americans. As a result of the 13th Amendment, Moorish people were emancipated from slavery in 1865. Notice, they didn't say black people were emancipated in 1865. They said Moorish people. Okay? People, you got to wake up. I'm going to read this last part. Now, therefore, I, A.C. Wharton, Jr., Mayor of Memphis, Tennessee, do hereby proclaim January 8th through the 15th, 2012 to be Moorish American Week in the city of Memphis, and urge all residents to recognize the events planned for this time, in witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of this city of Memphis to be affixed this 8th day of January 2012. And here is his signature. Look it up, people. All right, check this out. I got another one. Basically, this is one that Atlanta City Council put in place. Same thing. On this one, the top, it says the Moorish Americans whose ancient forefathers are the mothers and fathers of the human family. And this was signed by C.T. Martin, Council District 10, the Atlanta City Council. Look that up, people. That's that person's signature, okay? Now, it's several more. I won't read all of this, but I'll just give you a guideline. You have one that was signed by Rahm Emanuel, the mayor of Chicago, in December 22nd, 2012. You have Jim Smith, the mayor of Omaha, Nebraska, that was signed January 5th, 2012. You have one from Tacoma, Washington, signed by Marilyn Strickland, January 4th, 2012. Charlotte, North Carolina. Baltimore, Maryland. Fayetteville, North Carolina, Lynchburg, Virginia, Little Rock, Arkansas, Trenton, New Jersey, Tyler, Texas, the one I just read, Atlanta, Georgia. You have Noble Drew Ali Day, which was signed Washington, D.C., Noble Drew Ali Day, which was the mayor of Philadelphia, 2001. People, look into the Sundry Free Moors, 1790, okay? We don't have to reinvent the wheel, okay? All of the information I just read comes from this good book right here. The Holy Quran, the Circle 7 Quran, that was divinely prepared by Noble